G'day everyone, just thought I'd pop in for a quick chat with you all on a Sunday morning. I was just reading an article and I just thought, oh my god, I'm over this. So I wanted to talk to you about it from my perspective. So I thought we'd have a chat. I also saw, the Panda's here. Hi Panda, I noticed you even put a menu on this morning, but I watched that after. I watched your actual review after I'd read this article, so I wanted to have a chat with you all about it because it really is, I don't believe it's an issue at all. There is areas for improvement, I'll talk about that, but I really don't think there's an issue at all. But I'm going to give it a couple of minutes for people to pop in before we start having this live chat. And then I'll take you through this article and sort of show you why I don't think it's an issue at all, because I'd love to have a chat with you all anyway. So if you can give me a thumbs up, guys, that'd be great. We'll get people in. I'm just having a look who's popping in on the chat now. We've got Espro is here saying, no, it's not. He's obviously talking about the menus are not good enough. We've got the Panda photographer here. Mario's here as well. Dan's here as well. Look at this beautiful beard that I'm growing. It's a bit metro. We call it Metro here. It's just I'm trying to look that, tough, sort of gorgeous look. If I give you that profile, hang on a second. If I give you the blue steel look. I'm like this and I haven't even had a drink this morning. I'm just having a coffee with you guys. Yes, I did watch that, Panda. I watched it this morning and it was good. So I'm only going to give it about another minute and then we'll actually start, because I'm going to take you through this menu business that people are talking about and constantly you hear it. And I'm going to sort of talk about my feelings about this as well with you guys. Look, I do love Sony and I really do like Sony, but I'm still not that typical fanboy. If I thought there was something really, really wrong, I would mention it to you guys. I'm not sponsored by them at all, so I wouldn't hold back. But I do want to talk about it from my perspective. Mike's saying tough guy. Thanks, Mike. It's Mother's Day here in Australia today. I just made Kerry bacon and eggs this morning. So she's madly in love with me because I did that for her this morning. I'm not sure if she's watching. Ben said, happy Mother's Day. I'm sure she'll hear that, Ben. Saying to your wife too. Richard's here as well. So we've got a few popping in. Ben's just learning the Sony menu system because he's just basically got an A7S. He's doing real estate photography, so he'll sort of work out things as well. Espro's in Germany. Time to sleep. Yeah, it's very early for you, mate. Anyway, I'm going to go over because we've got enough now watching, so I'm going to switch over to this article. Now, I saw an article this morning and I read it, and I don't know, I just think it's all taken way out of context. And this is what I want to talk to you about with this. It's Mother's Day here, Panda, in Australia, Mother's Day today. So I wanted to talk to you about that because I really do think, honestly, it's not an issue. And I think sometimes the people that are talking about these menu issues are people that have just moved over from Canon or Nikon. And I can tell you about that because I moved over from Nikon to Sony 2 years ago. And when I first went over, I thought, oh my God, it's totally different. It is completely different. And I want to talk to you about that because if you're moving from a completely different camera, the menu system will always do your head in and you don't understand it. Now, when I recently was reviewing the ProPhoto A1, I did also use a Canon 5D Mark IV, and I'd never used Canon before, actually, to be honest, well, very rarely, but I could not work my way around the menus, and that's because I'm so used to the Sony menus and the Nikon menus that I couldn't work out the Canon menus. And I think a lot of this has to do with people that are switching between cameras. Just recently, I was shooting the GH5 and also my Sony cameras, and the reason why I got rid of the GH5 in the end was because I was struggling when I was doing a wedding on the day to be switching between two menus and two camera systems. And I had trouble when I went to the GH5, which does have a really easy menu system, but I went over to the GH5 and I couldn't work out what to do or what to press. And that was the issue of not being used to a system and the way that it works. And that's why now I've sort of standardized on all of the Sony gear, because that way all the menu systems are basically the same. But I want to talk to you about the reasons why I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as what everyone is saying. And to be honest, I think what's happening here is that you're getting a lot of people that are really terrified about where Sony are going. Now, it used to be the lenses that they actually discussed. They were always bagging Sony for their lenses. Then it went on to their batteries. The battery sucks. The batteries were no good. The ISO was an issue. There's all these other issues. And the second that Sony have addressed issues like the lenses, they've addressed the issues like the menu, like the batteries, then they have to choose something else. And I think that's what this article is, and I'm going to show you in a minute. I think this is someone that is against Sony. He keeps mentioning Fuji all the time in there, and I really do believe that that's the hidden agenda in what he's trying to actually talk about. And I'm just saying hi to these last people here. So Mario's here. AL3 Keski, I think, is here from Chicago. What else? Jim's here as well. So we've got a stack in. Anyway, I'm going to show you this article because this is the article that I'm actually read this morning. And it's in Photography Life. And it's by, I'm not sure, Nassim Mansurov. I mean, look, you can have a read of this article yourself. I'm not going to link it because it's a bit annoying. I just think a lot of the things that he's saying here seems to be a Sony hater. And I just don't like anyone that just bags gear just for the sake of bagging it and out of fear, which is what I think that's happening in this scenario. This is one of the beauties about being totally independent, that I can really say what I feel, and I don't care what anyone says, basically. I'm just going to tell it to you how I see it happening. I do definitely think that this is just Sony bashing going on here, and I really think that it's just silly, you know, and it's the things that he's coming up with, talking about coating and issues with filter stacking and stuff that I've never heard of before, because I've never ever had any of these issues. And then he comes up to this other article, and just before I do that, I'm just going to show you some of the other things. He's saying custom buttons and customization issues. Well, I've been nothing but happy with the way the customized buttons work, and I'll talk to you about that in a minute. He's also saying apps and basic features, and that's one area that I have discussed with you, in that I think they should have kept the Sony Play Memories apps in there to give you things like time-lapse. So I'm not just this Sony supporter that's going to say it's all rosy. It's not. Sony should have added in a time-lapse feature into the cameras, and I think that was a big mistake, getting rid of those apps. And that's the thing that I think is, you know, a very important feature. So I agree with him in that respect, that they shouldn't have taken out those basic features. Lossless RAW, no lossless compressed RAW. Well, yeah, that's another thing that maybe I would like, but it's not such a big deal. The Sony camera eats stars. Yes, I know there's still issues out there with that. Lack of firmware updates. Sony could give better firmware updates like Fuji does. And I notice all through the article, he's linking to Fuji and stuff all the way through, and that's why I'm saying I think he's just got it against Sony, this guy. Phase detect artifacts. I mean, how many people are really suffering from this sort of stuff? Sony Pro support issues. I have got nothing but fantastic things to say about how Sony Pro support have treated me here in Australia. Now, I can only talk to you about how this has been done in Australia, but definitely in Australia, the Sony Pro support is outstanding. And like I said, I've had a couple of issues, and I've logged it. They've picked that camera up that day, and it's been couriered to the person that fixes it in South Australia. If they can't replace it immediately, they've given me a loan replacement camera or lens, and it's just been exemplary, and they keep you up to date the whole time. So I can't talk highly of that now. So I think now most countries, the Sony Pro support service is mute. Like I said, I think this guy just has it against Sony. But I wanted to concentrate today on one of these discussion points, which is the menus. Because he just talks about that the menu systems are horrible. I'm not going to go through this whole thing because I just don't agree with most of it. But I will talk about some things where I think Sony could be better. But he just goes on and on and on, and then talks about customization issues and things like that. And this is why I wanted to talk to you about this. So let me sort of go back, and I will come back to the discussion, guys. But the beauty now with the Sony cameras is that you can customize all of the buttons that you'll sort of see on the back of this camera. You can also customize to the buttons on the top. Now, this is the A9. You can also customize the buttons on the top as well. Fully all customizable. You can also customize all of the this area through here, you know, while you're sort of left, right, and up and down. The center button you can customize. You can even customize the joystick. So there's so much on there that you can actually do. Just let me silence this. Siri thought I was talking to her. So there is so much customization on the camera itself. So that's one aspect that I want to talk to you about. But I also want to talk to you about the menus, because this is another really interesting thing as well. That the menu system itself. Oh, it's on this camera actually. I'm gonna show you the A7 III. Now before I do that though, let me also show you that the menu system that we're dealing with as well has this other feature which is called the FM button, and I'm going to show you that just in a second about how I set mine up. And that's an important feature as well that I want to take you through as well, because I think really it's the way you can customize the camera. You very rarely have to go into the menus, and this is what I'm trying to say to people that are moving over. Yes, there is an adjustment and a learning curve, just like if you'd shot Sony your whole life and then you'd moved over to Canon. When I grabbed the 5D Mark IV, I had no idea what I was doing when I went through the menus. So it is an issue of what you're used to. Now, could they be better? Yes, they could. They could definitely be better, and I wish that you could use a touch screen to manipulate through the bits on the back and things like that, that Sony could make them so much better. But they're nowhere near as bad as what people are trying to make out, all the trolls out there that are saying the menu systems are really terrible, and I don't agree. I really do not agree with what they're saying. I think they just don't want to learn it. I think that they're trolls from another camera maker that's terrified about where Sony are going, because seriously, I very rarely ever go into the menus now. I don't have to anymore, and I'll explain why. So let's switch over to have a look at the menu system anyway. So this is using the A7 III, all right? Now, I understand that when you're talking about it, that at the top, that when you're dealing with this, that, you know, there is... I've just got to try and work out where we're going through here. It's a bit awkward. Ah, there we go. Now, at the top, I've taken people through what my settings are on these, so I'm not going to go through all of that. But the initial part where you're going through all of these menu systems is reasonably complex. Yes, it is. But once you get to learn it, it's no longer an issue, and I'll explain why in a second, because you only use certain features of this every single time, and that's the beauty of it. So, basically, if we come across, the first one there is to do with photography. The second one is mostly to do with videography. The next one there is networking. The other one for here is your playback. Then you've got your basic settings like is your monitor brightness, camera settings, formatting your cards and things like that. But the beauty of this is that you can use this star menu. Now this has only been brought into the last few cameras. I'm pretty sure it's not on the A6500. I can't tell because it's up there. Someone might be able to let me know in the chat here as well. But it's definitely in the A7R III, it's definitely in the A9, and it's definitely in the A7 III. So the star menu is fantastic because what you can do is you can put what you change all the time under that setting. And this is what I've got under my settings here. I've got flash compensation because I use that a lot when I'm dealing with TTL exposure. I've got electronic front curtain so I can turn that on or off. Live view display because I do a lot of studio work, so I can turn the live view display setting on and off. And I've got S&Q settings, and that here too I can change my file format very quickly here. So excuse me, I'm getting a bit of a cough. If I want to change from shooting 4K to 1080p, I can just click into here and then I can change the format as well. So that's another way that I can quickly change between all of the menus. The other thing too I love is to put the touch operation on the back screen here, because I've noticed that sometimes if I'm shooting quickly, my nose or something might touch the back of the LCD screen and then it disables the touch sensor. So, or a touch sensor activates and then you can't focus properly. So I've now put that touch operation through there. So that's the important thing that I want to say to you is that your main settings you can set from this star menu for the things that you use all the time. Now then it gets even better, because on the back of the camera, like I said to you, was this FN menu that you've got here. You can program that, and I'll show you exactly how I've done mine. So if I just escape out of here, if I press the FN menu, so now you're seeing what I've got as the FN menu coming up. Oh, hang on, I've got to switch back to here. Is that going to focus? Yep. So this is the FM menu. So I've pressed the FM menu, and you'll notice that I've got drive mode. So if I want to click in here, I can change to drive mode. If I just come back, let me just get back out of this. If I want to then click focus area, I can go back into the focus area, change it all there. You can have silent shooting on and off. I've got center lock AF on here as well. Metering mode can be put in there. Your flash mode can go into there. If I come over to here, I've got flash compensation, automatic white balance, so I can check my white balance and change it through here as well. Creative style can be put through here. Now it depends too whether you're on video or stills. I'm on the stills mode here at the moment, so I can't access that. If I change this and move to video mode, and then I press the FN button, you'll see now that I've got the microphone coming in, and then I can adjust the microphone volume. You know, I mean, it's fantastic. I can prioritize the media of the cards, and I can also choose my exposure and everything else. And this is the thing, that you can have so much customization just by using these two buttons, in the fact that you've got your FN button through here, which I've said that I just showed you how that works there. And then pressing on that gives you those features that I was just showing you through here that come up. And then you've also got inside of here, you've also got that star menu as well. So there's really only two areas that I ever have to go in to change what I need to alter on my camera. That's that star menu, and it also is the FN button at the back of the camera. I mean, seriously, how easy can it be? People are making this way harder than what it needs to be. Way harder than what it needs to be. So this is the thing you need to understand, guys. Yes, there is an initial learning part to that, but it's not that bad, honestly. I mean, you don't need to be a scientist to get through these menus. All the people that you are hearing about that are whinging about these menu systems, I believe, Sony haters, and that's the thing that I want to try and make you understand. Once I've got this set up, I never ever touch anything really on those menus. I'm only ever using those two things. Now the custom buttons, so I'm going to show you how my custom buttons are set up. So I've just got to find where that is, so let's have a look. See, this is the time where you do find things are a bit awkward to find, because I very rarely go into here, but like I don't need to, but I just want to show you this so we can see where it is. So custom keys, control wheel I've got not set. The custom button 1 is flash compensation, custom button 2 is focus magnifier, custom button 3 is focus mode, and custom button 4 is zoom. Now, if you're looking at the next lot coming through, multi-selector is on focus standard, center button is on IAF, the left button is on drive mode. That's the wheel that's on the back that you're thinking about looking at. The right button is ISO, and the zoom button is down. So just to show you what I mean by that, I'm talking about this wheel here. All right. So if I press on that down, it gives me zoom, so I can go for zoom. If I press right button, it will give me ISO. If I press the left button, you will get drive mode, and if I press center button, it will be IAF, and it's multi-selector in the center. So that's how it actually works through that. Let me just go up to number 3 here. Now, how I've got this set up, if you go across, all I've done is I've now moved over to the third one. So I've got the AEL button as IAF. So that is this button here. So the AEL, I'm using that as eye autofocus. And I just like, basically, the reason why I'm doing that is because I can press on the AEL at the back and then just shoot away. And it works really well with eye autofocus. So that's the reason why I'm using that as IAF. The AF on button is AF on and focus hold is IAF. AF on, I'm using back button focus. So they're the things that I've set up in my quick keys. And the thing that I'm trying to say to you here is once you get your camera set up, you never need to really go in the menus. I very rarely ever go in there anymore. I don't have to because it's all in that FN button. It's all using the quick keys and it's all using that star, which is the only menu really that I ever go to. And you can change that depending on how you shoot. So really there's no reason to hate the Sony menu once you've got it set up. And that's the thing. Could it be made easier? Possibly, yes. But it's not that big a deal where you'd think, oh my God, I'm not going to buy a Sony because the menu systems are crap. When you hear someone talking like that, horrible menu systems, I think he's just a Sony hater. I don't think they're horrible at all. There is a bit of a learning curve, yes, but they're not horrible. I mean, I just think when I read articles like that, you're just a troll. And you're just a Sony hater. But anyway, let's have a quick chat because I'd love to know what you guys think about it all. I know I'm ranting a bit, but I hate people that are really negative about everything all the time. Just get out there and shoot. Stop worrying about menu items and if they're a horrible menu system. For God's sake, just get out there and start shooting and stop worrying about if you think a menu system is horrible. I'm using all these cameras every day, and like I said, I very rarely ever go into those menu systems. Get over it, you people, honestly. It's ridiculous. Let's have a look anyway what some of you people are having to say. Mario said, great chat and very important topic. Great that you brought it up. Jean said, having my favourites tab works for me. I know, it is fantastic. That's the best thing that Sony have added, honestly, Jean. That favourites tab is so good. And like I said, you program it to how you shoot. And that's the beauty of using that menu system. You probably won't have it the same as I do. That doesn't matter because you program that to the way you shoot it. The same with the FN menu. You program that FM menu to shoot the way you do. And that's the beauty of this, is that you can customize that camera exactly how you shoot. And even with your quick keys, you know, you C1, C2, C3, etc. Panda said, the main reason why I post the video today and talk about it is because not only that article that is talking about it, about the menu and the system, yeah, about that article, yeah. Roman said, hi David, I tried Nikon and then since moved to Sony, much better menu system for me, a very gadget-like, which I love. I know, I really, like I said, Roman, it's not an issue. Like I said, I had problems about when I went to Sony that day because I didn't know it. Now, I could have then immediately gone online and started slamming Canon's menu system. Are some camera systems better? Yes, but it's not worth whinging about and calling it a horrible menu system. It's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. Like I said, they always have to have something to go against Sony, and now it's their menu system. I mean, if that's all they can whinge about, seriously, it makes me crazy. AL3K said, I'm thinking about getting the A7000 when it's released. Is that good? Yeah, I mean, I think it will be probably a fantastic camera. I'm still waiting on that myself. I'm really excited about when that's going to come out. Hanging out, actually, for that. Jean said, people just got used to Canon Nikon menu. And that's exactly right, Jean, they have. They have got used to a Canon and Nikon because they've always been around. Now, Sony have come out with something a bit different, and I actually don't mind it at all. I think it's very logical in the way it works. Sometimes I get a bit lost as well, but like I said, I very rarely go in there. So it's just mute. It really shouldn't matter now at all. Mario said, I do have to say from personal experience that I had terrible support experience 4 times, really scary, but it was not the Sony Pro support. Yep. And like I said, Mario, I can only talk about Australia's Pro support. I don't know what it's like in the US or Europe or wherever, but here, I'm telling you, it is the best support. I'm also part of the MPS for Nikon. I've still got that membership, actually. But the Sony Pro support is way better than that. I used to have to take my camera into Nikon in Melbourne, and then they would fix it up from there. Still a great service, But Sony, my God, they contacted me. I got an email a few weeks ago talking about the A9. There's issues with the hot shoe on this camera, and I do have to send it in to get replaced. But Sony contacted me about that. Sony Pro Support contacted me and say, David, please organise a time for us to pick up the camera and we'll get it fixed for you. When I had an issue with the memory card, I thought it was the camera and it was the memory card that went. I contacted Sony. They picked it up. I contacted them, I think, at 9 in the morning. They picked it up at 10 a.m. that day, and it was then couriered to South Australia. I then heard from them the next day to say they'd got the camera, and it was fixed really. Actually, I had to wait a while because they weren't sure what the issue was. They sent me an A9 replacement. Why I had it, it turned out it was only the card. But the service was unbelievable, and I've used them a few times even to clean the camera. If I say the camera needs cleaning, I'll put that in that morning. They'll pick it up within 1 or 2 hours. It'll be sent off, cleaned, and then sent back to me in a couple of days. It's unbelievable, and I just can't say how good it actually is. It really is incredible service. Let's have a look. Dominic said, coming from the Canon, it's a bit of an adjustment. Yeah, and it will be, Dominic. And like I said, I had the same problem when I had the 5D Mark IV. I didn't know what on earth I was doing. And I was having trouble with the GH5 as well, because I didn't know that system as well now as what I know Nikon and the Sony system. So, you know, it's an important thing that, you know, you do have to be, there is a learning curve with anything that's new. It's like if you buy a new TV and you go through the menus, my God, there's menus everywhere. It takes a while to actually learn them. But once you learn them, it's not an issue. And you will learn it, Dominic, and then you won't have any trouble at all. Carl said, moot, not mute. It's an Australian thing. It's an Aussie slang, Carl. I'm relatively new to photography, so ignorance is bliss. Still loving my A7 III, going up on the roof soon for a sunset. That's beautiful, Lance. Have a ball out there. Dominic said, I have more issues with the Cheesecake Factory menu than the Sony camera one. I love it. That's a good analogy. Lance said he knows Carl, he just speaks Aussie. Thanks, Lance. Where are we? Jean said it could be the Australian accent. It is, Jean. Jean saying, hi, Susie. Hugs. You missed you, girl. Yeah, she's over there. Susie's over there, see? Susie's there. Oh, thank you so much. Someone just gave me a donation. I don't know who that was. Jim, thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate that. Let me come back to these questions. Panda said I'd also program my FM button. Yeah, the FM is so underused. It's just fantastic. I love that feature. Like I said, once you start using the FN and that quick menu, you don't need anything else. It's incredible. There's no searching through menus. If you can't organise your camera with that favourites menu, if you can't just do it with that menu up the top here, oop, I've just moved that, haven't I? If you can't do it with that menu that's up the top here and that FN menu, you're seriously in trouble because you can put so many settings just in that the star menu plus the FN menu. It's way more than enough. Yeah, Panda said his A77 died a few days ago. I'm sad, but she's now in camera heaven. Yeah, sorry to hear about that, Panda. Jared said, when you switch to the camera menu, you have two micro... Oh, let me check that. Thank you for that. Where's that? Oh, I see. 1 2 1 2. Is that better? 1 2 1 2. Test. 1 2. I think I've got to go that one actually. 1 2 1 2. Test 1 2 3 4. Is that better now? I think that's it. Yeah, sorry about that. I know I should have taken one thing out of there. All right, let me come back to here. What else? Let's have a look. Martin said, today I stepped out of my marriage with Canon for the first time since we met over 20 years ago, and now I'm in a better place with my A7 III. Thank you, Sony. It's a big move, Martin. I know exactly what you were saying. I had issues too when I was using Nikon and moved over to Sony. It's pretty scary, but I've never looked back, and I really don't think you're going to look back, honestly. The A7 III is incredible. What that camera is offering you is unbelievable for one package. It's the best camera out there, actually, as a complete camera. It's stunning. Carl said the menu system is fine. Philip said, some people just don't like having options. That's my favourite part in the Sony menu system. You know, and that's the interesting thing about it. You know, like it's really important to have options, and you can tailor that camera exactly how you want to tailor it, and that's the beauty of that. Gaston has said it's very thorough. Once you get the hang of it, it's okay. Full implementation of the touchscreen, and exactly. And like I've said to you, I will always say as it is. And there are areas that it could be better. Sony have got the nous to give us a full touchscreen. I mean, clearly they do it with phones. There's no reason why they can't give us that option to use that back screen with a touchscreen fully. And it's going to happen. It's just a matter of waiting. Jim said, the menus are easy for a Sony critic. They are difficult. Out of the box. I have my A7 III customised in 5 minutes and seldom need to use the menu system now. And you know what, Jim? I'm exactly the same. When I set up my initial camera, it did take longer when I first did it with the first Sony camera I got. Now, I'm like you, I can set it up in 5 to 10 minutes and it's done. It's not hard at all once you learn that system and once you learn the way you shoot. I agree with you completely. Gastoni said, it is very thorough, though. Once you get the hang of it, it's okay. Full implementation. Oh, I've already read that, yep. Where are we? Lance said, agree, in this day, a full touchscreen will be awesome and seemingly easy. I don't know why Sony hold that back from us. I really don't. Perhaps they're just waiting for another camera. Perhaps the A7S III will have it. You don't know, or the A7000. Mario said, I'm sure Sony's Pro support is going to be better and better with time. Yeah, let's hope so for everyone else, but it certainly is fantastic here. Mario said, sadly, they closed the Sony stores in Miami. I hope they open again with Pro support included. Thank you so much for that donation, Jim. Really appreciate that. Jim said, you used the 10 spot to buy a 6-pack. Modelo. I love it. Lance said, smash the like button, peeps. Thanks, Lance. Thanks for saying that. Gastoni said, by the way, lots of people don't know you can change the settings with the dials within the FM menu. Exactly, you can. Mario is saying hello as well. Hayden is saying all one needs to know about the camera are how to change aperture, shutter speed and ISO and get clicking, and that's pretty universal. I know, I agree, Hayden. Like when I used to use film, you didn't have all these menus. People didn't whinge about not having these menus. You're exactly correct that that's all you really needed to use. And like I said to you, this is Sony haters going on about this. They have to have something to hit Sony with. Like I said, it used to be the lenses, then it used to be their Pro support, then it was their battery, then it was their ISO. There's always things that they have to go on about. Then it's the ergonomics and the camera, the feel of the camera. I mean, seriously, get a life, these people. Get out there and start shooting. Like I said, it's just ridiculous. And they will, if Sony fix these issues that they're calling about, they would then decide something else. They have to have something to whinge about, these trolls, and they always will. And that's why I'm saying to people that are thinking about going into Sony, or that are already into Sony, don't worry about it. You've got way more control than you will ever need. Once that camera is set up, they are fantastic. And I wish reviewers would just stop going on about the menu systems are horrible. They're not horrible at all. They just don't understand them. And that's the thing that I want people to understand. NBW said, any wish list for the A7 R3 and do you... Any wish list? Oh, okay. And do you think they will release an A6700 or... Well, I think they are going to release that camera fairly soon. I'm not sure whether it will be the A7S III first or the A6500 replacement first. We've just got to wait and see. Probably Photokina, though. I think we're still going to have to wait a while. They never released anything in that Sony show that they just had the other day, Kando or whatever it is. So I think it's going to be probably Photokina before they release, which I think is in your autumn, isn't it? It's about September here, I think. Excuse me. David said, unless you sign up for Sony Pro support, you are going through a different company to have the camera service. That's right. And you really, hopefully, can get Sony Pro support. It really is important to get that. And like I said, I've got nothing but great things to say about that Sony Pro support. It is fantastic. But I can only talk about it from an Australian perspective. Callum said, great show as always. It's 2 a.m. in here in Scotland. I'm struggling to sleep. What's better to do than watch David. Thank you so much, Callum. I really appreciate that. I did a show yesterday for you guys, more in your time zone. David Johnson said, unless you sign up for Sony Pro support, you are going through a different company. Yeah, that's what we just talked about before. Remy said, the only reason can't fully commit to switching is bracketed shooting. I can't seem to find out how to shoot more than 3 brackets with my A7 III. I don't know if you can. To be honest, Remy, I very rarely do bracketing anymore. I used to do bracketing all the time when I was shooting Nikon, because the dynamic range in those days just wasn't as good. I think I was shooting a D810. And I used to shoot bracketing or light HDR all the time. And I'm not sure you can even do it. Someone might be able to chime in onto the live chat now. Because to be totally honest with you now, with the dynamic range, particularly of the A7 III, where you're around 15 stops, you don't need to bracket very much at all. I can get anything out of 2 shots. Anything. And that's the beauty of doing it now with this. You could definitely do it with 3. Oh, thank you so much, Jen. Really appreciate that. So you don't need to bracket anymore, I don't think, anywhere near the amount you used to. I used to sometimes do 7 when I was shooting with Nikon, believe it or not. I used to shoot 7 exposures and then blend them later on for HDR. But the dynamic range now is so incredibly insane on the Sony cameras, particularly the A7 III, that you just don't need to do that anymore. So I think I'd like to say to you, Remy, that challenge yourself to try and do it with a 3 and just see what you can get. And I think you're going to find that is way more than you'll ever need. Like I said, I never need to go past 2. So I think, I don't think that's going to be an issue anymore. Jim said, watching Susie. Jean said, people can even just set the ISO on auto. Exactly, presetting the aperture. And they're all going to worry about is shutter. Exactly. And I just honestly... it just does my head in the way that people will whinge about things. And I just wanted to talk to you guys that follow me that I think, honestly, it's all a load of crap. It is not an issue at all. Once you get your camera set up, you're never really going to go into the menus anymore. And all you'll ever be using is that FN button and that star under the quick menu in the menus. That's it. And occasionally, you may have to go in and find a menu. But very rarely, like I said, I very rarely ever go into the actual menus to go through the whole thing. So, you do need to think about that now, that it's not an issue, guys, anymore. Jim said, shoot 3 to 5 shots without bracketing, change the exposure by a stop or fraction between the same scene, then HDR merge. Yeah, it's like I said though, Jim, I used to do HDR all the time, and I just don't need to do it now. To be honest, with 15 stops of dynamic range, you can make that image look like HDR. It is incredible. And I've showed you in some other videos how much you can pull up in the dynamic range for using the A7 III. It's outstanding. If you can't get every tone in 3 exposures, I would think you're doing something wrong, seriously. It's just that good now that you shouldn't need to go over 3 exposures. Are there any last questions before we call it a day? Otherwise, apart from that, please, if you can, give me a thumbs up. There's 60 odd watching. I'd really appreciate it if you could give me a thumbs up. And I'll see you over the coming days in another video. I think the next video I'll put up will be Kiara in studio again. I've got a stack of other stuff that I'm going to be putting up soon with the smoke shoot. I want to talk to you about some other things too during the week as well. So apart from that, guys, if there's no other questions, I'll see you all again soon for the next video. So please, when you hear people talking about how bad Sony's menus are, think about this discussion that we've actually had. Start saying it's not as bad as you people are saying it is. It's just not a problem anymore. Anyway, Jim said with HDR, mostly agree. All right, guys, that's all for now. I'll catch you all again soon for the next video. Bye for now.